Episode 93 of the Pilot to Pilot podcast takes off now.
My name is Brittany Wildrum, and I fly 206s and 207s in Homer, Alaska.
AOPA's Pilot Protection Services is made for pilots who love to fly. Welcome to Pilot Protection Services, where our medical certification staff, legal services staff, and panel attorneys take on the struggles that all pilots deal with. From staying out of trouble with the FAA, becoming a better pilot, to staying healthy so you can stay in the left seat longer. We're proud to help over 66,000 AOPA members keep doing what they love most every day. Check them out before your next flight at aopa.org/PPS. What is going on, Aviation, and welcome back to episode 93 of the Pilot to Pilot podcast. My name is Justin Seams, and I am your host. Today, I am talking with an Alaskan bush pilot, a bear guide, and just an overall cool person, Brittany from the Instagram account, Brittany Spins. Now, she is someone that everyone should be following, looking up to, because her story is just incredible. I mean, she left southern, warm, sunny California to go up to cold and wet and snowy Alaska, which offers some amazing things and some great flying as well. Like I said earlier, she's a bear guide and an Alaskan bush pilot, so if that doesn't sell this episode, I don't know what else will. I mean, that is just the coolest thing that you can ever call yourself. So Brittany, you're doing something pretty cool. Aviation, if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review on iTunes. You can check us out on Patreon. Special shout out to our Patreon of the week, Stuart Roderick. He is our $20 Patreon of the week. So Stuart, you're the man. I really, really appreciate it. Aviation, also go ahead and follow us on Instagram. Shout it out to everyone at Pilot to Pilot, trying to get those followers up, trying to catch Chris Palmer from Angle of Attack. Well, I also want to give a thanks to for letting us borrow his studio. That's right, they both live in Homer, Alaska. It's like the smallest world in the world that they are just together in Homer, Alaska. So pretty wild and pretty cool. But Aviation, thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please share it with all your friends and go ahead and listen to Brittany's episode. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Brittany from Brittany Spins. Brittany, what is going on? Welcome to the Pilot to Pilot podcast.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Excited to have you on. It's going to be fun.
Yep, it will.
So first thing I ask everyone is why aviation? What was the inspiration for you to get involved with aviation?
My inspiration. I have wanted to be a pilot since I was 6 years old. My dad got up to solo back in the 70s, and my grandpa was a pilot. He passed away before I was able to ever talk aviation with him, but I kind of believe that aviation is just in my blood.
Yeah. What, so you're 6 years old and you said, was it your dad he soloed in the 70s? You said, did he fly anymore after that? Like when you were younger at all? Or what was kind of when you're 6, how did you know about aviation? Would you go to the airport? Would your dad tell some stories about your grandpa, or how did that work?
My dad never told stories about my grandpa, really. He just, he had a few stories. He worked in a Unicom tower up in Colorado. So he would tell me a few stories about that. And I was just 6 years old, sitting listening to him. And I was like, that sounds cool. I'm going to be a pilot. Like little 6 year old, maybe they'll be a pilot. Maybe they won't be. Maybe they'll be like an astronaut or something. But I just stuck with it the whole time I grew up.
That's cool. Did your friends think you're crazy when you were like, I want to be a pilot?
I don't think I really advertised it that much when I wasn't flight training. I just kind of, if people asked me what I wanted to do, it's just, I want to be a pilot. And that was that.
Where did you start doing your training?
I was it was my second year in college. I was at junior college at Moore Park. And actually, I think it was my first year. So I was 19 years old. And something had just happened. And I was like, I just need to start. Like, I had been saving for flight training since I got my first job working retail at the Oaks Mall. And so I just saved up, and I was like, I think I have enough money saved. I just need to do it. I need to go for it. I'm just waiting around. I don't even know what I'm waiting around for. So I think my biggest regret in aviation is my biggest / only regret is not starting earlier.
It's funny you say you worked retail. I worked at the Apple store when I was doing my training. So I worked retail too when we were doing it. It was
That's
terrible.
so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
it was
never want to work in
terrible.
retail ever again.
Yeah, well, you hear the same 6 songs on repeat when you work at Hollister. So, but I still hear some of those songs, and I'm like, oh man, flashback.
It's just so cool that you had this dream and you had this goal of yours, and all of a sudden you just either, you could either keep waiting and waiting and waiting and put it off, and the fear of maybe doing it and failure and stuff like that, but you just decided to do it. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I want to say I was all in once I started doing it, but my flight instructor at the time, Chris Gilbert, he was awesome. However, his work schedule was kind of sporadic as well. And I was still in full-time school and working, I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 jobs, but so it was just really hard to coordinate times to meet. And, I want to say with weather and stuff, but I can't really say that since it was Southern California.
Yeah, you can't complain about the weather in Southern California. That's not allowed.
Living up in Alaska now, I really can't. But yeah, so I want to say I was all in, but I wasn't totally. And then after school ended, like I was done with college, I really started to dive into it. I got my first job driving a fuel truck with Western Cardinal at Camarillo Airport, and I loved that job. I was just able to network and meet people and just connect with different people from, many different areas of aviation. That was pretty cool. And I think that's kind of when I started to like fully submerge myself. And I was like, yeah, like this is awesome,
Absolutely. So when you first started this goal of yours and you first started training and you first dove all in, like you said, maybe except for the weather, even though it's Southern California, like we said, but when you first went in, did you have goals of being an airline pilot, or did you kind of know the track you wanted to go on?
No, actually, I never wanted to be an airline pilot. I have always just wanted to love what I do. I've actually had a dream of going to fly in Africa, being a missionary pilot. And then when I was flight training, that goal kind of seemed unattainable at the time, just because, like 1,500 or 3,000 hours seemed like so many. And here I am with like 100 hours. And I'm like, man, that seems so far off. And then they require like Bible credits too. And at this point in my training, I was like, I really just don't want to go back to school for that. It's just going to be more money. And I really want to spend my money on my flight training instead of going back to school just for right now. So that was kind of my goal. And then that kind of transformed into, okay, maybe that's something I can do in the future. But right now, I still want to go fly the backcountry, fly somewhere cool, be adventurous. And that's how it kind of transformed into, I want to go be a bush pilot in Alaska.
That's really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it does. It sounds awesome to everyone. I feel like everyone kind of has that not necessarily desire, but maybe the want to do that. But the goal for most people getting aviation is just to become an airline pilot, become a corporate pilot. And once you get your time to be able to go to the bush, maybe you're kind of like, well, now I can apply for the airlines and I can make money. I'd rather make money, So it's really cool that you had that goal and you're doing that, because I think that's the most fun flying you can possibly do. You can ask anyone that flies 787, the plane I fly, whatever it is, they miss that kind of flying and they would definitely love that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a firm believer of, you're not loving what you do and you're getting paid a lot of money, is it really worth it? Because I'd much rather be loving what I do and hardly be able to call it a job and be making a lot less money than, the opposite.
Yeah, that's cool, because not many people can really do that. It's hard to turn down that money. I even have that battle right now. Like, I love what I do. I love flying the corporate life and I love the corporate world, but there's always more money made in the airline. So it's like a constant thing. It's like, well, do I go to the airlines because I can make more money, or do I stay in corporate because I love it? So it's really interesting, the battle that everyone has in their mind and how they choose to go about it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Talk a little bit more about your training. So you kind of mentioned that there's difficulties with the schedule, and you claimed, air quotes, that there's bad weather in Southern California. So what?
Oh goodness, I'm gonna get roasted for that. I know that. Yeah. So Chris got hired with the regionals. So he was like, I'm really not gonna have time. Let me refer you to CP Aviation in Santa Paula. So I was like, all right, it's kind of scary going to an actual school. And so I did. I went there and I finished up my private there. It still took a little bit of time because of like school and stuff, but it was definitely a very good experience, especially flying in the non-towered environment. And it is a very high traffic airport as well. It can get extremely busy. And there's a lot of people that fly in there too that sometimes don't do their research on the non-standard traffic pattern. I don't know if you're familiar with Santa Paula, but it's a really small little airport that's kind of snug up against this giant hill. So there's really no room for a downwind 45-degree entry. So you really got to look at the POH or not the POH, the AFD before you go in there.
And everyone checks the AFD before they go flying, right?
Well, I don't know.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time.
At least. Come on.
Yeah, right. I'm just giving you a hard time. No, I mean, that's just a good point though, because being a pilot, you go to so many different airports, and what works at one airport, it's not going to work at the other one. So it's a lot of times you need to get into the nitty gritty details of really how that airport operates to make sure you're operating safely and operating the way where everyone knows what you're doing, so they can kind of build a picture of where all the planes are.
Right.
So did you like towered airports versus non-towered, or do you not really have a preference?
Now that I've had a solid taste of both, I have to say that I kind of like the non-towered environment better, just because there's a little more freedom. The first time I went back to California to visit after moving up here in April, I think it was the end of September when I went back. And I had accumulated over 500 hours up here. And I went back down and I flew one time and I wanted to tell the tower, like, I've accumulated 500 hours. And this is the first time I've been cleared to land in that much time. I didn't say that, but I thought it. And
you should have.
It's just kind of, I think it was kind of busy, which is why I didn't say it. Like Camarillo was pretty busy, but it's just kind of funny.
That's really funny. Hey guys, this is my 500th hour. Thank you.
my 1,000th hour, I'd accumulated 500 up here.
Oh, I gotcha.
Out of Homer is non-towered. We've got a flight service station, but we fly across Cook Inlet and to the villages across Kachemak Bay, and none of that stuff is towered. Well, so I hadn't been cleared to land. I've never been cleared to land in Alaska.
That's hilarious.
So I don't fly up in Anchorage or anything. It's all pretty much local stuff, but yeah.
That's going to be like the tagline of this podcast. I've never been cleared to land in Alaska.
Yep.
That's cool. I mean, that's wild. Yeah. It's just a totally different world up there. Do you think your training in California prepared you for the flying in Alaska? Or when you went up to Alaska, was it like brand new, 0-hour pilot trying to figure out what's going on?
I think I had the possible best training experience in California that I could have had for being in California, like to prepare me for Alaska. Like I have some pilot friends in California that have had obviously more experience than me flying off field in the bush and stuff. Like Dustin Mosier, for example, like, man, he's a private pilot with like 3,000 hours and he goes and lands like anywhere and everywhere. His little mini wagon will take him. And, he's definitely someone I look up to for that. But, and then Michael Mason, the owner of Mason Wing Walking, who's based up in Washington. He does some business down in Santa Paula sometimes, but he took me up in his 205 and at night, and we did some Alaska flying type stuff before I came up here. And he was like, "This is what you're going to be doing up in Alaska." And I was like, "Cool. Like, this is, like really encouraging, but like, this is what you're going to be doing, kind of serious down to the point, And just some other friends that are incredible pilots take me flying, let me fly, and great experience. It's really who you surround yourself with and who you choose to surround yourself with and the course of training that you choose to take. I don't think I would have been as well prepared if I had gone to a 141 school, and because a lot of those 141 schools are more geared towards getting people ready to fly for the airlines, and when that's not what you want to do, like, don't do it. don't go take lessons at a 141 school if you don't want to go to the airlines.
I mean, yeah, it's really as simple as that, like you might be able to build your time the fastest, but if you're not trying to go to the airlines, then what's the point?
Yeah. And it's just really expensive too. Like, I mean, if you can pay as you go or like save up and then just knock it out all at once. I think that's a much more practical way to do things, especially, when you're trying to not go into debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is hard to do in aviation.
It's really hard to do. But if you're patient, I'm lucky that I got an early enough start to where I could take my time and enjoy each step and kind of save and pay as I went. And I'm very, very, very blessed that I was able to finish all my ratings without any debt.
How are you able to do it, if you don't mind me asking? Did you have to take some time off to kind of go back to work and save up more money, or be able to save up enough money to, like you said, just pay for it and do it?
I actually lived at home for 24 years, so I wasn't paying rent. So I lived at home until I moved up to Alaska. And then, like I said before, I saved up for my very first job for flight training. And my mom taught me to be very frugal with my money. So like when all my friends were taking trips everywhere, I'd be like, no, I don't want to spend that much money. Like how many hours is this worth in flight time to go do this, whatever it was. So, yeah, I missed out on a lot of stuff down there, but in the long run, it was totally, totally worth it.
How hard was that for you in the moment though? Because in the moment when you see your friends, like I'm just gonna I don't know if this was happening, but they're like, when I was doing my training, I had friends like going to Greece and going like all over to these really cool places, and it was just like, what the heck? Like we're 25 years old. How are you able to do this? And I was kind of like a FOMO type thing. Was it similar to you? But like you had the greater goal in front of you. You knew what you were saving for.
Yeah, it was the greater goal for sure. Like, I mean, when you're that young and in love with aviation as much as I was, it's like, aviation always trumps anything else, whatever other adventure was about to happen. It's like, just want to go flying, Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about like surrounding yourself with those people, and you made sure to find people that prepare you for your next step, that prepared you for Alaska. How did you find those people? How did you surround yourself with the right people? Because people listen to this and they always hear me tell them to get a mentor or to find good people in aviation and find friends in aviation. How did you go about doing that? Would you just go to the airport? Was it when you worked the line job? Is that how you got all the friends and the contacts?
Yeah, the line job was definitely part of it. That was my first step into just the aviation world, like being fully submersed. I met a lot of people that way, a lot of friends. And I got my next job actually at Santa Paula Airport. So when you spend that much time at an airport, you meet a lot of people and you become really close with a lot of friends as well that are also spending a lot of their time at the airport. And then when you're at the airport for that long too, I mean, even if you're just hanging out, going to watch airplanes, the aviation community is so friendly. It's like, how do you not make friends when you just go to the airport, Like when I would live back in California, every Saturday I would drive aimlessly to Camarillo Airport and like just every Saturday and just go hang out. I would see what was going on because there's always something going on Saturdays, whether it was like the B-25 out flying or like who knows what. Like there was always events at the CAF going on too. Just everyone was always at the airport on Saturdays. And it's kind of like one of those FOMO moments. Like, that's what I had FOMO for, is going to the airport and people being there and having fun without me. But yeah, I think another good resource of finding mentors too is online. Like we have Instagram and Facebook, and there's a lot of Facebook aviation groups as well. So I know that we've both met a lot of our friends through the social media world as well.
Yeah.
I think
really
that's
crazy.
Awesome.
When I was younger, everyone told me not to talk to strangers online, and now all I do is talk to strangers online.
Same.
It's wild. It's a weird place.
Yeah. But it's a great way to meet people and connect,
Yeah. It's a great way to
awesome.
kind of get a group of people that have one similar thing in common, or maybe a lot of things in common, but it's a great way to meet people, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you were you mentioned that you wanted to be a missionary pilot in that way, and you kind of thought that that was really far away and kind of hard to do. Is your feeling now that maybe it's more attainable, or is that still something that you think you might not be able to do?
Yeah, I definitely feel a little bit closer to that goal. So I actually am going to start taking a Bible class here in Homer. We have a Bible Institute in town. Ironically, our little 7,000 people town, there's a Bible Institute.
I didn't even know there was that many people there. I thought it was like 500 people.
Oh, no.
It's a major city, right?
Yeah, we're actually on the road system.
Wow.
So, very end of, yep, very end of the highway.
Do you guys have a Costco or a Target?
I wish. No. That's you have to go up to Anchorage for that. That's about an hour flight or a 5-hour drive.
Dang, it's that far. Wow.
Yeah. The only thing that you'd probably know here in town is we've got a Starbucks, Subway, and a McDonald's. Everything else is pretty much like family owned. It used to be Homer's, but now it's Ace Hardware.
Oh.
We've got Ace Hardware.
Dang, y'all made it.
Yeah. So Ace Hardware, McDonald's, Starbucks, and Subway.
That's
crazy.
It.
That's all that you would know, at least. We've got some really, really good family-owned places.
That's
great
cool,
fish
though.
Tacos.
Yeah.
Alibis, shout out. Yeah, it's great. You'll have to come up and visit sometime.
I want to, for sure. It's definitely, I want to go
Yeah.
flying up there and see it. It definitely looks really cool.
Good. Come hang out with Chris and I. Or you could collab with him and come hang out at Smoky Bay with me.
That'd be cool. I don't know what that is, but it sounds great.
Well, it's where I work.
Yeah.
Smoky Bay.
Is it Smoky Bay like aviation? Is it? Huh?
Smoky Bay Air.
Cool.
Smoky Bay Air.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. We'll have to. I would definitely want to. Chris needs to stay in one place and quit moving around so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to take you on a ride along or something.
I'd be down.
Cool. We've got one of our runways, Nanwalek. It is a curved runway. So that was the most challenging airport or runway that I've ever learned to fly into. Definitely intimidating when I first got up here.
So you still have this dream of becoming like a missionary pilot, and you're kind of going for that. And I guess Alaska is probably the best place to be to prepare you for that kind of flying, right?
Yes, I would think so. The flying's very challenging up here and also humbling at the same time. I definitely couldn't think of another place that I would want to be.
What's the most challenging part about flying up there?
I think the most challenging part about flying up here from flying in California is definitely the weather.
Yeah. Does it change as fast as what people say it does? Like you wait like 5 minutes and a snow squall comes through, and then 10 minutes later it's clear and then it's cloudy. And is that really true, or is it a little more predictable?
No, it's actually true. The other day I was going into Nanwalek, one of the villages that we fly into, and it was probably a 3-mile visibility or something, maybe 3 to 5. I'm not sure. It was definitely, above minimums, but landed there and just kind of, unloaded the plane, did my job. And then I looked up and I was like, hey, I can't see that hill over there. And, the hill's like a mile away. So I was like, I think I'm going to hang here for a few minutes. And about 10 to 15 minutes later, that cleared up well above what we needed to get out of there. And then there was another time I was going into Port Graham, and I was turning the corner to go into the bay, and I was at 1,800 feet with about 4 to 5 mile visibility. And 15 minutes later, when I came out of that village, I was at 500 feet with about 2 or 3 miles visibility coming around that same corner. And it improved a couple minutes later, but it's true what they say about Alaska. It's pretty insane.
That is crazy. What obviously, I mean, like, how do you prepare for that? How do you know what the weather is going to be? I know it's a little bit different than, say, like the main 48. What are you mainly talking to flight service? Do they kind of have like a HIWAS up there? Or how do you know when the weather's changing when you're in the air?
Well, so the job that I do is we fly every hour and 10 minutes into the villages. It's a scheduled air service. So there's 3 villages on the south side of Katchimak Bay. And so every time, if it's like a marginal weather day, we'll come back and before we leave, we'll be checking weather. We check radar, windy, and basically every source that we possibly can. We've got FAA weather cameras all over the state of Alaska, which is amazing. We've got one for Nanwalek and Homer, and those are extremely great resources doing the type of flying that we do. And, it's just really safety-oriented training as well, safety-oriented company and owners that really care about, just the integrity of the company, keeping it a safe operation. There's no reason that anybody should go flying into a mountain. No reason at all. Like it is completely 100% preventable. If it's questionable, we don't go. But it's also like, if we can go, if legally we can go and it's not forecast to get worse and stuff, then, we'll most likely be going. But sometimes we'll have conversations with our chief pilot, should we be going? What do you think about these conditions? Because obviously I'm no expert on Alaska flying. I just got here in April. And to me, everyone else who flies up here has more experience than me. So I'll be talking to them about what their opinions are. And I'm not saying like I'm a terrible pilot. I'm just saying like, I'm not going to walk around with my head all high in the sky and,
I know
more than you.
I'll be fine. I can show them. Yeah.
There's no point to it, because we're all learning and it can get intimidating out there.
Was there a learning curve between when you first started there to where you are now, where you became comfortable flying in those conditions? Like when you first were maybe on the line flying by yourself or even flying with someone next to you, was there like that moment of like, man, this is kind of uncomfortable, to where now you're more comfortable?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we don't get weather like we do up here down in California. California, it's like sunny and 55 at least all year round. So, but yeah, when I first got up here, I flew with my chief pilot a lot. He is a phenomenal instructor. He's challenged me, and there has been in the past little spurts of like, okay, it's been sunny for like 2 weeks, and now it's like, marginal ceilings and relatively low visibility. Mr. Chief Pilot, will you please come fly with me? I'm on the edge of my comfort zone here, and I don't want to be taking passengers if it's been a while. Like that's kind of what it was like more towards the beginning. Right now, I'm a lot more comfortable.
I think that's smart though.
Discussions.
I don't think a lot of people actually do that. I think a lot of people kind of think that they're on their own and maybe they don't know they can reach out. So I definitely think that's smart of you. And I think that shows that you're a good pilot and you're willing to kind of, some people might be afraid of the embarrassment of going to the chief pilot, but you're not, and you were able to ask for help. So I think that's great.
It's, less embarrassing to ask for help than it is to, just make a complete fool of yourself if you fly into something and, something ends up happening. I mean, obviously sometimes there's things that are out of our control, but it's more erring on the side of safety.
What are you guys flying around mostly up there? Is it? I've seen through following your Instagram, I see a bunch of cargo, and I also see there's like opportunity to take passengers. So is it a mix? Is it more cargo than people, or is it more people than cargo?
I'd say it's a very healthy mix. So we fly a lot of store freight, and we fly a lot of mail, and we fly a lot of villagers too. And then during the summer as well, we fly a lot of tourists because we do the bear viewing across Cook Inlet.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's a really fun mix of things.
I can only imagine. Have you ever flown crickets or anything crazy like that?
Crickets.
Yeah, when I did, with a freight company I flew for in the lower 48, we would have to fly UPS or Amazon packages, and every once in a while, someone would order like a bunch of crickets, like to feed something. Oh. And we'd have to fly crickets. We flew bees. We flew like all this blood, like all this stuff. So I didn't know if it was the same up there, or if it was like you said, just more store stuff.
I've never flown crickets. I have flown some animals before. I've flown a couple kittens and some dogs. I've flown bunnies, and we actually flew a seal, or actually a sea otter last week.
I was like, what?
Yeah, we flew a baby sea otter last week, so that was kind of cool.
Why? What happened? What was the need for it?
I don't even know. They may have been transferring it to a sea life center. I don't know the full story behind that, actually. So
that's pretty wild. Just
yeah.
Brittany, you need to go pick up your load. It's a sea otter, by the way. So good luck. How do you strap that down? How do you strap that down in the plane?
It was in a cage.
Okay. I didn't know they made cage for sea otters. So
it was like a dog cage, but I actually didn't even get to fly it.
Oh,
it was our company that flew it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, my one of our other pilots flew it.
How many planes do you guys have?
Next time I'll get it. We've got 7. We've got 4 206s and 2 207s.
Nice. Do you have a preference over which one you like?
I was thinking about this the other day, actually. I think I like the 207 better. Because I don't need a seat cushion to sit in it. I need a booster seat in the 206, and my passengers always make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, I accidentally knocked out your booster seat." It's like, it's fine.
Yeah, haven't heard that one before. Thank you.
It's fine. I mean, like, I just need a little bit of a boost to see partial, just a little bit of a cowling,
Yeah, helpful. Yeah, so it definitely helps.
Helpful, yeah. And the 207, it's just a beast. It's awesome.
What's the difference between a 207 and a 206? I've flown a 206 before. I have a couple 100 hours, maybe. I'd have to look it up, but I have a couple 100 hours on a 206 and an off-field landing when I lost my engine in one. But other than that, I love the 206. But what's the difference between a 206 and a 207?
Okay, well, I want to hear that story. But the difference between the 206 and the 207 is the 207 can carry 200 more pounds, so it's got a 3,800 max gross weight. And then the 206 has an IO 520 versus the 207 IO 550, and the 207 is a little bit longer too. Are
they turbocharged, or do you guys just do the normal aspirated?
Yeah, they're just normal.
Okay.
Normally aspirated.
Does that happen to? Do you feel like sometimes you wish you had the turbocharged version, or is that okay in Alaska?
I've never flown turbocharged anything. So actually, that's a lie. I flew turbocharged once, but I didn't really fly it that much. But it's kind of hard to say because I've never flown a turbocharged 206 or 207. So I really don't know. But I'm happy with what I've got. I'm very thankful to be flying the airplanes that I have.
Those are really cool airplanes. I mean, I never even knew what a 207 was until a couple months ago, I want to say, maybe even a year ago. Someone was just like, yeah, 207. I was like, wait, you mean a 206? And they're like, no, a 207. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not a real plane. And then they pulled it up. I was like, oh my gosh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's cool. What, I guess kind of question about the type of flying that you're doing. Is this kind of like a necessity for these local villages? Or do they have no other way to get these, the store goods or the baby seal into this area without, like, they can't drive, or is it an access? Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is this the only way for these villages to receive mail or any kind of services like that?
It is the most practical way. These villages are not on the road system. So, they could use a boat. There is a barge that goes into one of the villages like once every 1 or 2 months or something like that. But it's just, everything would be so much slower, especially in the winter time. The harbor was frozen in for a little while, a couple weeks ago or last week or something. But yeah, there are like boats getting stuck trying to get out of the harbor. Man, that must not be fun.
No, not at all.
Compared to like a couple hours on a boat ride to like a 15 to 20-ish minute flight across the bay, it's definitely, I would consider as a necessity.
I would too, yeah, without a doubt. What? How many takeoff and landings do you usually get in a normal day?
Ooh, that's a good one. If it's a busy day, I'd say probably in the winter, probably 20 to 30 landings.
In one day?
Yeah.
Dang. You're just going back and forth, like 15-minute flights back to like, so say you like start in base, you go to one village, come back, go to another village, and you just keep going on your scheduled routes?
Yeah. So we could like double stop in the villages or triple stop or sometimes even quadruple stop if there's inter-village passengers. And then, we always go back to Homer in between each hour and 10 minutes. So it's a lot of takeoffs and landings. You really learn to get the hang of it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit about the curved runway and how that was the most challenging runway for you to figure out how to land at. Are there any other more challenging runways there? Or is every kind of village or runway or air, I don't know, you probably don't call it an airport, but wherever you're going to land, is there anyone that's more challenging than the other one, or they all kind of have their own challenges?
They've all got their own challenges. It really depends on the weather conditions. Like Nanwalik was definitely the most challenging when I was first starting out. But I've got it pretty dialed in now. So yeah, I think it just depends on the day and the current conditions. Cause they're all villages and, they don't have like METARs or forecasts or TAFs or anything. Actually, that's a lie. One of them, Soldovia does.
Oh, so one of the many airports that you go to? Jeez.
Yeah, one of the three. Yeah. So Soldovia's got a METAR, but the other ones, Nanwalik's got a weather cam. But Port Graham, we don't have anything for Port Graham. We don't have any type of camera that points down the bay to be able to see what the ceiling might be. We're kind of just going off of relatable sources, like from the wider area, like from Nanwalik, Soldovia, seeing what the weather's like there, and then seeing if maybe we could get into Port Graham that way. But yeah.
What would you say is the most satisfying part of your job? I mean, I don't know, when you land, you get to interact with people like getting mail or getting their stuff, or is it just go to a handler and go somewhere else and continues on?
The most satisfying part of my job, I think, is not being a taxi driver. Like I'm actually part of these villagers' lives, there's a gentleman in Port Graham Village whose son was in the hospital last month. And it's pretty cool because, I'll see him around and I'll be like, hey, how's your son doing? There's not a lot of pilots that get to do that with their passengers. And just having personal relationships. Like there's this little girl who I fly every weekend back and forth from Soldovia. And I flew her yesterday, actually. And she's having her birthday this week, and she was telling me how she got like puzzles and stuff for her birthday with her dad. And it's just really sweet because, I get to see these passengers all the time, and, we know each other, and it's always funny seeing them out in town too.
They're like, wait, you're the pilot.
Oh, wait, you have a life outside of work?
Yeah. It's like, you're going to bring that stuff tomorrow by 3, right? You're all right, huh?
Oh yeah. By the way, I don't live there.
That's funny. Was there a big culture shock coming from Southern California to Alaska?
Yes, I think there was a little bit of a culture shock. I adjusted, however, a lot more quickly than I had anticipated. The summer did not get as hot as California does. However, it was a very hot summer. Like Anchorage had record temperatures.
What's a record temperature for Anchorage? Like 70 or 80?
Oh, gosh. Oh, no. I think it got into the 90s this past summer.
Oh, wow. That's hot.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really hot. And it affected a lot of our bear viewing trips as well because the bears are really hot. So they would go up into the hills and they were eating berries and stuff up there. So it was just really hard to accommodate our tourists that wanted to go see bears. It was hard for us because we couldn't find any bears because we're not going to hike up a mountain and find these bears. We were on a time crunch, people.
Like, well, come on, man. I just paid for all this. I want to go see that bear.
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm really intrigued by this whole bear sighting thing. Like, I remember seeing pictures. I remember you kind of like, you just like land. I don't even know where. To me, it looked like you landed like on the bed of a lake, and you would see these bears. I remember everyone was carrying these like huge guns in case they like came and charged you. But like, what's the process? How does this go about? Where do you normally go to find these bears?
So we will fly across Cook Inlet over to Chinitna Bay typically. And we've also got silver salmon that we go to. And we land on the beach. And, actually we'll go wherever the bears are. So if we fly over to Nitna and there's no bears, then we'll go check out silver salmon. And, finding no bears was unfortunately a little bit of a problem this past summer. So we were kind of, scouring for places to go. And we've got another beach down south in Hallow Bay that we go to as well. But yeah, so we'll land on the beach and we'll unload the passengers, and everyone's got waders on, and we'll basically just go hike and find some bears. All the pilots are trained bear guides. So we get trained before the season starts, and instead of guns, we actually carry flares. These bears have been exposed to human interaction for decades. So they're actually used to us being around. The little adolescent bears are a little more curious. So they tend to be the ones that give us the most problems, which is fun because, you got to keep it exciting somehow.
Until mama bear comes after you guys. That's not fun.
Yeah. So I've actually never seen anyone use a flare. My chief pilot has only had to use a flare once, and it was because the bear claimed our airplane as a plaything. So it was actually climbing on the airplane, and he was playing Ring Around the Airplane with the bear, and he finally had to get out the flare and scare the bear away. Got to get home somehow. So
this is crazy.
Yeah. It's always an adventure. That's the best part about it.
This is like normal life for you. You're telling this like it was like a Tuesday, and I'm over here like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So how do you spot the bears? You just kind of fly over and you circle and you're like, oh, hey, there's a bear. Let's go land. Or is it like, oh, we saw 10 bears there. Like you got about 30 minutes before they probably go out. Is it kind of like how do you even spot the bear?
The bear activity is highly dependent on the tides. So there's an extreme high and low tide here. Can differ between like a 20-foot high to like a -5 or maybe even 10-foot low. Like it's insane. You could like walk a mile out into the ocean and still like not hit the ocean because it's low tide. It's pretty insane. Yeah. So, so the bears are highly dependent on the tides, and depending on the time of year it is. Like in June when they're just waking up from their hibernation, a little bit earlier than that, but around when they're usually pretty happy with the sedge grass in the fields. And then towards the end of summer, they like the salmon. So there's salmon run. And if you follow like Dion Mitten on Instagram or anything, there are a few bear accounts too. He posts videos and pictures of bears feeding in Katmai National Park. So they do a lot of fishing out there, the bears, I mean. So it's pretty cool.
That is cool. I remember I couldn't remember if it was your videos or his videos that I'd watch, and that. It's just like, this is wild. You guys are pretty close to the bears, like not far away at all.
Yeah, I think the closest I've ever gotten to a bear is probably the bear was walking past me like 10 feet away. Yeah. And it's just like I said, these bears are used to human interaction. So they're used to us like being there, and they're just not bothered. They've got abundant food sources where they live. So they don't view us as food. And if we don't leave food behind, they don't associate us with food. So it makes for an awesome bear viewing adventure.
Yeah. I'm going to have to come up and do some bear viewing.
You should.
Take the city boy up and see some bears. I'll probably run back to the plane and go hide. Be like, no.
You can if you want, but that's not going to be very fun.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's just really cool to see how aviation can be used and the different outlets that aviation can do. I mean, Alaska is such a different world essentially, like for how aviation works. And it's just so cool to hear those stories and hear that it's not just taking people from point A to point B. It's kind of getting to know the people you're flying, getting to know the people you're helping. And it's also being able to have experiences like going to go see bears and doing this really cool stuff. So now that you've been up flying in around Alaska and kind of doing the whole bush thing, which is awesome, by the way, what are your goals? I know we talked about being a missionary pilot, but now between then and now, do you have any other goals and type of flying that you'd want to do?
Ooh, you're asking all the good questions.
I try.
I honestly don't really know. Like, I have a lot of things that I really want to do and I really want to try, but coming up to Alaska and kind of flying the bush and having this grand adventure was really what I wanted to do. And now that I'm here and I'm doing it and having the time of my life, I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to be doing next. Like I said, I am pursuing a Bible course right now, so maybe mission aviation flying will be in the future. I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I've been doing a lot of job research lately, but I just know that I want to continue just loving what I do.
That's awesome.
So that's all I can give you.
No, that's good. I mean, that's the only thing that you really can do, because I remember kind of in my time building stage, and even when I was out of my time building stage, and there's just so many options of what I could do, and I could find it kind of scary and intimidating, because you don't want to make the wrong choice. It's kind of like, well, if I do this, then I'm going to say no to that job, and that could lead me down this track into this, and you could find yourself doing something you don't want to do very quickly. So it's definitely kind of an intimidating time to be where you are right now, with kind of a future that can be so open in whatever you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been praying about it, and I've been very patient with it. Like, I've still got, I think, 9 months before my commitment with my company is up. So there's absolutely no reason for me to be anxious or worrying about that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think you could go back to California and fly and do normal flying now?
No. Not at all. The Alaskan way of life is just incredible. I mean, I've done some things up here that if you told me a year ago that I would be doing, I'd be like, no way, that's insane. Like, I've learned how to butcher a deer.
That's crazy.
Yeah, what else have I done? I don't know. It's just kind of insane. I've hiked up to a glacier lake before. I mean, now that you asked me that question, there's not a lot of things that pop into my head, because I feel like I've just kind of been, like, oh, this is just life now, but,
do you see yourself wanting to stay in Alaska forever now?
If I were to live in the United States, yes. But with the possibility of working for a Christian organization flying overseas, maybe like Africa or something, like, I've been looking into jobs in Africa. So I think that would be cool. But in the US, yeah, Alaska is where it's at.
I have 2 friends that I flew with at my freight company who fly, I believe, in Kenya, and they do that. They fly, really? I think they fly caravans, maybe, or 206s, caravans. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I think it's either called AIN or AIM, maybe, one of those two. I don't know.
Huh. You'll have to
after this,
talk to me more about that later. Yeah.
Yeah, I have another buddy who I flew with at that freight job too, who flew in Indonesia for 25 years, and he was kind of he started it out there. He did a bunch of cool stuff out there. So I got some contacts for you.
Cool. That'd be awesome.
Sweet. Well, hey, I have a quick rapid fire section for you real quick, where I'm just going to ask you a bunch of random questions about aviation, and you have to answer them as quick and as fast as possible.
As fast as possible.
Yes. All right. So you ready?
As I'll ever be.
What is your favorite general aviation airplane?
J3 Cub.
What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite corporate or airliner?
No.
What is the ugliest airplane you've ever seen?
Oh no. I don't know.
If you don't know, ugliest? We're just going to say you think the Piaggio is the ugliest.
Oh, well, I think the Cirrus is pretty ugly because it's got a parachute.
You only see it if it's deployed, though.
I know, but just the fact that it's got a parachute. I don't know. Ugly? I don't know. That's a tough one.
That's fine. You don't have to answer. You honestly don't have to answer it. Not a big deal. Would you rather fly over mountains, beach, or the city?
Ooh, not the city. Probably mountains or a beach.
What is the hardest check ride you've ever had?
Private. My private was the hardest I've ever had.
Why was it hard? Just because it was the first one?
Yeah, it was the first one. You don't really know what's happening or what to expect.
So say you're going back home and you got to make a connection in Seattle or something. You need to get some airport food really quick. What's your go-to kind of food court airport food?
Oh, I don't know. Wherever the fruit cups are at.
What's one thing you wish you knew before you became a pilot?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is going to be a slow answer.
It's okay. The magic of editing.
I hope you leave this in here just for that.
That's funny.
I don't know.
No worries. If you don't have anything, that works too.
No, I need to have something for this.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
What's the hardest approach you've ever flown?
Runway 1 in Nanwalek.
Let's see. Do you like long trips or short trips?
Short trips. I have to pee a lot.
Piper or Cessna?
I want to say Piper because Piper makes some awesome airplanes, but I fly the stationaries, so I'd have to go 50-50.
There you go. That's fair. I mean, that is pretty fair. It's pretty much spot on. What's your favorite thing about aviation?
My favorite thing about aviation, probably the freedom. Yeah. I love the freedom it gives you.
Who's one kind of maybe like public figure, person, friend, maybe you've already met them, but who's someone that you would like to meet in the industry?
Would like to or would have liked to?
Both. So it can be dead, current, whatever.
I think it'd be really cool to have a conversation with Don Shelton.
Yeah. Cool. You don't really care about airlines, but I'll ask you anyway. What's your favorite airline livery? Paint job.
Oh, I don't know. Alaska Airlines.
What's the biggest win in your career so far?
The biggest win. I'd say it's always a win overcoming any type of fear. I think moving to Alaska and just facing my fears of getting out of California and leaving behind everything that I was familiar with to move into the unfamiliar, that was a big win because it was the best move of my life. Yeah.
Cool. I love that. And I'll end it with there. I'll end the rapid fire questions there. I just have one more question for you. You have someone that's listening to this, they're really interested in becoming a bush pilot or they want the experience that you have. What are some tips, and maybe you can either do 3 or 1 or whatever. What are some tips and tricks that you would tell them right now to prepare themselves for kind of the Alaska life or prepare themselves to start flying in the bush?
I would say wherever you're at, like network with people who have either similar interests or people who have done it or people who have experience with it, like become their friend, talk to them, just pick their brains. And then, I don't know, just like definitely, I think that's the best advice I have is just exposing yourself to people who have similar interests and have done it. Because
so slide into people's DMs and ask them questions about how they did it.
Yeah, but not even necessarily that, like, it's one thing to like talk to somebody about it, but if you can go out and actually do it, do some adventure flying, there's Super Cubs down in the lower 48. There's, I don't know. There's tailwheel airplanes, but there's a bunch of people in Santa Paula that, love going off field. There's a lot of opportunity down there, I think. But also reaching out to people up here that actually do it. If, your goal is to go up to Alaska. And then just, if you want a job up here and you're ready to start applying, just apply. Talk to everybody, network, and, make those connections.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Brittany, you survived. I know that you said you're nervous earlier, but you did great. It is. We're officially done. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I think it's really cool that you're coming on and telling your story. And I think that'll help a lot of people. I really like that you kind of knew you didn't want to do the airline route and you never were tempted by it. And you're kind of carving your own path in the aviation world. So it's really cool.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that is a wrap of episode 93 of the Pilot podcast. Aviation, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode. And like I said earlier, shout out to Stuart Roderick for being the Patreon of the week. Go ahead and check out our Instagram page and please follow us there at Pilot. That's where I'm the most active. That's where I communicate the most with listeners, with just people in the comments and DMs, and post more pictures there than Facebook, Twitter, or any other social media platform. You can check our website out at pilottopilothq.com. And if you want to be on the show, or you know someone that should be on the show, send me an email, pilottopilothq@gmail.com. Aviation, that's all I got for you today. As always, happy flying.